The train to nowhere. It was late, far later than I should have been out, and the station was dead silent. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead cast long shadows across the platform, making everything look just a little wrong. The digital clock read 11:57 p.m. and I prayed the last train would arrive soon. When it did, it was unlike any train I'd ever seen. It made no sound, no hiss of air or screech of brakes, just a heavy stillness as it glided to a stop. The train cars were older than any on the usual line, their paint peeling and windows grimy with age. The doors opened without a single announcement, revealing a dimly lit interior. I hesitated, but the cold wind pushed me forward. The moment the doors shut behind me, I regretted it. The car was eerily empty. No ads lined the walls, no maps or safety signs, just worn seats covered in stains I didn't want to identify. The overhead light flickered sporadically, casting brief, sharp shadows. I settled into a seat, gripping my bag tightly, and stared out the window, but there was nothing to see outside. No city lights, no passing buildings, just an endless void, darker than any night I'd ever known. It felt alive, pressing against the glass as if trying to seep inside. The train rumbled forward, but it didn't stop. The clock on my phone read 15 a.m., then 12:45 a.m., but there were no stations, no announcements, just the endless black outside. I tried checking the transit app, but my phone displayed an error, route not recognized. That's when I noticed I wasn't alone. A man sat at the far end of the car, hunched over in a suit that looked like it had been pulled from a century-old photograph. His face was obscured, his hat pulled low, but I could feel his gaze burning into me. I shifted uncomfortably, trying not to look at him. But when I glanced at the window, I realized something chilling. His reflection wasn't there. I stood up, heart pounding, and moved toward the door at the end of the car, hoping to escape to another section of the train. But no matter how many doors I opened, I was always in the same car, the same seats, the same flickering light, and the same man, now sitting closer. I pressed the emergency button on the wall, but it was dead. The train rattled violently, the lights dimming for a moment. When they came back on, the man was sitting across from me. His face was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were like black pits. A faint, rotten smell filled the air. "You don't belong here," he rasped. His voice was brittle, like dry leaves scraping against stone. What do you mean?" I stammered, my voice trembling. The man tilted his head, his neck bending at an unnatural angle. "This train doesn't go back, only forward." The lights flickered again, and the car was suddenly filled with whispers. Low, guttural voices speaking a language I couldn't understand. The shadows around me began to shift, writhing across the walls like living things. Panicked, I sprinted toward the door, slamming my fists against it, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. When I turned around, the man was gone, but I wasn't alone. Figures filled the train car now, their bodies twisted and broken, their faces locked in silent screams. They surrounded me, their eyeless faces leaning in closer. I backed into the door, trembling as cold fingers brushed my arm. "This is the end of the line," the man's voice echoed, though he was nowhere to be seen. "Welcome to nowhere." The train shuddered to a stop, the doors creaking open to reveal a platform bathed in a sickly, yellow-green light. The figures pressed closer, forcing me out of the car and onto the platform. The air was thick and sour, and the world beyond the tracks was a crumbling, desolate wasteland. A rusted sign hung overhead, its words barely legible, "Final Destination." As I turned back to the train, the doors slammed shut. Through the window, I saw the man again, now surrounded by the figures. His hollow eyes bore into mine as the train pulled away, disappearing into the void. I was alone, or so I thought. Behind me I heard the faint sound of footsteps on the platform, slow and deliberate. When I turned, I saw them. Hundreds of figures, all staring at me with empty eyes and twisted smiles. And as they closed in, the sound of another train echoed in the distance, the whistle low and mournful. The clock above the platform read 11:57 p.m.
The next train was coming.